Hi everyone. Let me just go ahead and get ready and then we will go ahead and get started. I want to welcome you all to another Wednesday Concept Cookie live stream. And today I'll be covering three things mainly. The first will be continuing where we left off from last week, and we'll be working on the second part of a character. And then I will also talk about Spectrum, the convention I went to last weekend in Kansas City, Missouri, and show you some of the loot that I kind of grabbed from there. And then lastly, I'm going to announce the winners of the spring contest that we had ongoing for the past month or so on Mother Nature. So I'm just going to go ahead and get this ready to go, and we'll get started. And as always, we do these every Wednesday at 2 p.m. and that's Central Time in the States, and that's -5 GMT if you live outside of the country. And just gotta do one more check, then we will go ahead and get started. Hi, wonderful. Hi. Thank you all for coming to this live stream. We do these every Wednesday at 2 p.m. and I'm Tim Von Rieden. I'm going to be continuing where we left off last week. And if you remember, we did 5 silhouettes, so I'm going to go ahead and pull them up. And then I posted them on our Facebook page asking you guys which silhouette you would like me to continue with. And the results are in, and we decided to go with number 4. So number 4 is this slightly larger female character, and I think maybe the reason she stood out because it's something different than what is normally seen, not only on the market, but from what I'm used to doing. So it'll be a challenge in itself, but I definitely will take that into consideration as we go forward with this one. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, I can either put all of the old layers in a group, then maybe I'll just copy her layer. I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to grab her, copy, deselect. And the reason that I'm doing this is so that, we can just get her by herself. Then I want to do a few variations before I just kind of go with the first idea we have. And I feel like that's a problem a lot of concept artists have, where they don't really take the time to fully realize the character. They just go with interesting silhouettes, then kind of force things to work or not work. So I'm going to hopefully take a more in-depth look at this character and what she would be wearing, what type of armor, if she has any. Really think about the environment that she's in and all these different factors that contribute to making a character. Oh, and as always, I'm going to have the Q&A open on the side. Oops, and I forgot to put that open until just now. So I want to say hi to everyone that said hello. I wasn't ignoring you, I promise. And let's go ahead and start kind of pumping some different ideas into this design here. I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bigger. So hopefully you guys can see that all right. And as always, if you guys have any questions or if there's anything you're wondering about that may not even be related to this live stream, so anything about digital art, concept art, whatever it may be, feel free to ask them in the questions section, and I'll be sure to look there from time to time. And starting next week, I'll have Deandra, our newest little cookie member, will be kind of helping with kind of picking the questions and then sending them to me, so that way we don't have as many pauses when I'm looking at the different questions here. All right, so like what I said, is I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this original silhouette that we created. Now the reasoning behind this isn't so that we create something more or less the same of each other, but we want to have slightly altered variations of each. So let's go ahead and maybe I won't even really touch the first one so much as I will put more effort into changing the second one up. So when I think of this character, and this is one that I've had in my head for quite a while now, it's one of the characters from my illustrated novel that me and my friend are working on. He's the writer and I'm mostly the artist, but I also do the writing as well. But this character in general is supposed to be this very grizzled old lady, and that's why she's given the nickname Grizzy. So the whole purpose behind her is she is supposed to be either like a pirate or some kind of merchant seller, but not in legal goods, something more kind of risky. And she has that edge to her. There's like a chip on her shoulder at all times. And I want that to come across in not only her expressions and the way she looks, but what she's wearing as well. So I want to be thinking about the environment that she's in. And I'm assuming it'll always be kind of like on the open water, something more salty. Something that will give you the impression that like this is a tough chick that you don't want to mess with and has seen years of experience on the open sea. So let's go ahead and give her some straps. Something that definitely reads as nothing that reads as armor, I should say. Where she can have like slight armor, but when you think of, I don't want to say pirates because I feel like she's not really a pirate, but something where when you're traveling on the sea, you're not going to be wearing like a whole, suit of armor. You would be wearing something that would be a little more comfortable, probably a bit dirty, but nonetheless still comfortable. And I want her to have this big, kind of messy, curly hair going on up here. And older. I should have mentioned that as well. So she is not a youngin by any means. I see her more as like this maybe 60s, late 60s, almost 70s, where I don't want age to be like a factor in the way that she goes about her business. Like she doesn't even see her age as a deterrent, or not a deterrent, as like a negative thing. She doesn't use that as an excuse. And that's just because that's her personality. And the reason that I'm talking about her as a person and why I'm giving her like this real, as if she was real, is because when you put more thought into your characters, when you really start feeling like they are this real, living entity, then you'll start to think of different details that maybe weren't if you were thinking about it more statically. Where even with her, like I'm really thinking about, okay, would she pull her hair back, or would she keep it in a bun? Things like even random things like that is just good to question yourself. And then as you answer those questions in your head, that's when you start to really understanding who the character is. Let's give her one strap there. This one will be very, I think, asymmetrical in the design. Where then maybe the next one I'll keep or even like the first one, you can see it's very symmetrical if we look at it and cut it completely down the half. I feel like she would definitely be wearing gloves. So for this one, she's going to have her sleeves rolled up. And whenever I do silhouettes like this where I'm trying to keep it more quick, I'm not worrying about how pretty it looks. And I think a lot of artists get stuck on that too soon, where mostly what I'm looking for is creating, and not so much an interesting silhouette where that should have been more in the first part, where here I'm trying to think about who this character is, what would they be wearing, and things like that. And it's always good to flip your image, and I have mine set to a hotkey, and I highly recommend that you do it as well. You'll see just things that you won't see from that same perspective if you're looking at it for an extended period of time. Because then things start to look right, but then when you flip it, you'll realize, oh man, like that arm is way out of whack, or something that you wouldn't have seen in that other perspective. And the reason I want her design to be more like heavy in the layering, because I really want her to look like these are clothes that she's collected over the years, and this is like the final motif of her character. This is the final stage. She's definitely not like a newbie. She's been around the block. So I want her to have these kind of materials that would reflect that. And it's kind of a hard task sometimes. When you're doing like younger, more agile characters, sometimes I find it easier. Maybe that's why I do more of them, because I find it more to be my comfort zone, where I can imagine like what they would wear and being able to be more agile. Where characters that are more heavy set like Grizzy, I'm not so much thinking about, okay, what would they be wearing that would make sense if they would run a lot. I'm thinking less about that and really more about what would they be wearing that would make sense? Okay, so someone's asking a question. Do you have any tips for blending and coloring in Photoshop? So I usually answer this, I want to say like once every live stream, and I think it's good because then that means you're either new to the live stream or this is your first time. And for me, when you're blending, let's say this was our base color. I like to go slow and then treat it like traditional painting, where you can blend it, use your eyedropper tool, pick up a color, and then lay it back down. So for me, I have a 3-step thing where I'm picking up colors, so using my holding Alt or Option on a Mac. So I'm picking up a color, laying it down, and then often resizing. So usually the process is resize the brush, pick my color, lay it down. And for the most part, that's generally how I paint entire images. And it may seem meticulous, but once you get kind of used to the whole process, I think it becomes more like you can put your mind on autopilot where you're not thinking so much about it. So once you find out what your autopilot is, then you'll really start to enjoy digital art, because I think up until that point, it just seems like a struggle and it's like almost painful where you're constantly thinking and things aren't working for you and it's frustrating, because I've definitely been there. So just know if you're in that mode, you'll break out of it the more that you practice, and eventually you'll find that one technique or your process that really does work for you. Okay, so I get back on Grizzy here. So I forgot what live stream it was that I was watching, but I remember the artist talking about how you want to keep your strokes very fluid, and sometimes even if they don't represent like a material or a fabric or an article of clothing, whatever it may be, sometimes that brush stroke will just give you an incentive and it'll give the impression of clothing, but maybe you're not sure what that clothing is at the moment, but that's all right. Just as long as you throw down some more interesting shapes and make the composition of the character look interesting. Alright, so I'm going to flip this one back. Let's go out to the next silhouette. Okay, someone's asking, Tim, could you be able to make the file accessible so that we can have a go at making our own version of her? Yeah, I could definitely do that. I think I will drop then this in, let's see, maybe the live stream page on our concept cookie page. And I'll give you guys a link to that on our Facebook page so that you can have better access to it. Maybe through this one I'll make her hair a little darker. Where this one seems more light. Maybe I don't want it to be that gray. Maybe I want it to be more of like, I don't want to use the word grizzled again, but I'm thinking like a dark charcoal gray almost. Not where it's like the pretty silver hair that some people get as they age. I want hers to be kind of raspy and more not dirty, but that darker gray that has like a mixed tone of a few different shades of gray. And even this would be a good time for me to even look up references. So like on my laptop here, I can quickly just type in something on Google or Pinterest and then see if any inspiration hits me. So maybe for her, let's try maybe doing more female pirate-ish without it looking busty or provocative, because that's definitely not what I'm going for Grizzy. Someone's asking, will I give her a weapon? You know, that's an interesting question. I guess I shouldn't say never, because I did have like a long night where I was thinking about what each character's weapon would be for the story. But Grizzy wasn't invented at that point yet, so I guess I haven't thought about what weapon Grizzy would have. I'd probably give her something. You know, I would make it related to her story, so it wasn't just some like random, decision. I really like to think out weapons for characters. I think it's standard and generic to just give them something like for her, just giving her like a pirate sword. Like, that would be really for me like the first go-to. And that might be what I end up going with, but I like to at least you know indulge in like what different options do I have at my disposal, and then see if anything more interesting comes up. And that's not to say I'm trying to like harp on pirate swords, but I just feel like maybe for a character that's so pirate inspired, having a weapon that maybe isn't so pirate inspired might balance that. Because I always say, like with character design, you want to be on the edge of working with something that's familiar and unfamiliar. So for her, the kind of pirate look would be the familiar, and then like the weird things that we might add would be the unfamiliar. Someone's asking, what about giving her a slight hunch, bring her head forward to make her look older and grumblier? I may do that, but I think the thing I really like about this character is how proud she is and very arrogant almost to a point of even if her back did hurt her, she would still stand up as straight as she could because she wants the impression that she is still standing strong and there's nothing bothering her. What I think would be cool is if we have like a lot of like belts, metallic or not metallic metals, so even like coins and other things hanging off of her, maybe even like a purse on the side. So it's definitely one of those things where I have to be careful with how much accessories I'm adding because this could push her to the point of being something that I don't want her to look like. Oh, maybe we should give her like those big puffy sleeves on the side. And a lot of the times, like I think when you're doing this stage, you shouldn't worry about whether or not it's looking good or like perfect in terms of proportion, shadows, values, whatever. The main purpose is trying to get a concept out. And that's why it's called concept art. You're not thinking right now at the stage of trying to create something that is perfect. That can all be done during the rendering phase, where all I'm trying to do now is create an interesting silhouette and concept that works well together. Someone's saying she looks like she should be a sky pirate leader raiding airships with the skyhook. That'd be kind of cool. You know what that reminds me of, and maybe that's where this character was inspired from unconsciously, was if anyone's ever seen the Miyazaki movie Castle in the Sky, there is a character that kind of reminds me of what I'm going for this, where it's this older lady and she is in charge of the Sky faction pirate or this like pirate crew, where she has a lot of sons and she's just a badass. And I think maybe I'm trying to capture some of that spirit, that essence in this character here. For stuff like this, I also find it interesting that even if you don't go with well, obviously we won't, but if we don't do one of the concepts, let's say like I dispose of number two being the final concept, maybe if I like that outfit enough, I could be like, well, maybe if they're in some town where she changes clothes, I can draw that in as the outfit. So don't feel like whenever you don't choose an option of your initial silhouettes, it's just gone forever and you have to be done with it. Like who knows when maybe you can use it for a different concept. Someone saying wearing welding goggles as a headband. I kind of like that idea. Let me See if I can find any interesting welding goggles. And the whole point of using references, you're not supposed to just steal the image, especially don't just copy it over and draw over it in Photoshop. So I feel like you're not really learning. You're just kind of taking someone else's work and making it forcing it to be your own. So let's give her, man, if I give her a bandana, she's definitely gonna look sky pirate-ish. Oh, but maybe I'll like that. I kind of like that idea. And give her goggles on top of that. Yeah, I'm kind of seeing where that could go. I want to avoid doing steampunk. That's something I'm not really trying to go for. Because I think that's a whole other genre that is kind of not what I'm looking to create here. I'm thinking for her, I don't want to give her... I almost want to give her like an axe or a machete or something that's just really blunt, like her personality. So who knows, maybe I'll leave it as like a sharp block knife or something as of now. Yeah, I'm not really liking how that silhouette's looking. I like having that thicker pant look. Alright, let's move on to the fourth one, and this will be the last one before we start getting to other things. I think for this live stream, I'm going to get into a little bit of the face, maybe drawing on the face a little bit. So let's see. This one, let's first cover up the initial sketches we kind of did there. I really like the face from the second one. I'm just going to copy that one over. So I'm just using the selection tool, copy paste, put the layer over the fourth one, and paint over that. So I think I like the plunging V neckline. Let's see if we can do something a little different with the scarf or that kind of frill that surrounds her bust. So maybe I'll make it like a thicker fabric. Something like that. But then I would definitely have to make some indication to mark where the shirt begins and where her skin begins. And maybe she'd be wearing like this heavy necklace case up there. Someone's saying a Treasure Planet cartoon version with the flying ship is what she reminds me of. Maybe you could do that as a background. Considering Treasure Planet's one of my favorite Disney movies, I can definitely have some inspirations be added in without me subconsciously almost. Especially the what's his name? Oh, the Sky Pirate. I can't think of it at the moment, but he had a really great design to him, especially with the cyborg arm and the weight of the character felt really realistic. It felt tangible. Someone's asking, what is the best way to paint crowds without making them look like blobs? That's a tough question considering I don't usually do environments. But I will say from what I've seen other environment artists do is usually they'll like highlight a few of them, even give them like an edging to it. And that could border on more of like a painterly style. But if you're looking to do more like realistic stuff, definitely vary in the heights, the sizes, give them some personality to it without having to over detail it. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah, someone's saying, what about a shotgun? Because she would be an up in your face, don't piss her off, yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see her being a shotgun welding character. I think in my story, though, I'm not going to have any guns or any kind of gunplay. So I may rule out shotgun, but I think it would be cool if there was some kind of alternative that would be similar to a shotgun in this kind of alternative universe. So I'm going to do the same thing with like those metallic, heavy circular discs. I really like the way that that kind of breaks up the space. So someone's saying, hey Tim, can you please give me some advice about outfits slash dress design? So I would say one, I would first look up real fashion in the real world. And especially in video games, I see a lot of influences from European kind of the marketplace over there. And I would definitely become more familiar with different terms and things about it. And actually, the other day I was looking at, I was just talking with my friend, and we were talking about shoes for some reason. And I asked them if they knew what Christian Louboutin shoes were, which are those black ones with the red underneath. And the reason that those are so prominent and so important in the fashion world is because they kind of represent strong women, and there's a strong, bold statement about wearing those. And I think that a lot of those same principles can be applied to concept art. So let's say your character is a very strong character, and you give them that black shoe, and then this is what makes them stand out, is on the underneath, it's this really solid, bright red. And they're very famous in the fashion world. And if you look at Final Fantasy 15 concepts that Tetsuya Nomura has done recently, all the characters, including the male characters, have these black dark shoes, and then on the underside, the sole is red. So it's one of those things where like I know exactly where he got that idea from, and it's a really strong concept, and he applied that to his game design things. So that's one example of like using fashion as inspiration for concept design. But in your case, you're asking about just like outfits and dress design in general. Think about the character. Really think about like what would they own, what would they purchase, what would they wear that would make sense for who they are, the environment that they're in, and hold that accountable to where you add it as well. So for her, she's a bigger gal in her late 60s ish, maybe late 50s. So she's not gonna be wearing like these skin tight, busty outfits that show her midsection, and that's like the go-to I feel like for female characters nowadays. But she's not gonna follow that trend because she's a whole nother breed. She's this whole new interesting character that doesn't follow the standards of what female characters are supposed to be in today's kind of market, I guess, if you want to call it that. So for her, when I'm thinking about her outfit design, I'm thinking about, okay, she lives on the sea, so I'm going to give her some, aspects and attributes of sea life. I don't want to say pirate, but it's where my mind, kind of goes to right away. And you'll find yourself sometimes being frustrated with like where your mind will take you right away. In most cases, it'll go to like the most generic concept, but you want to push past that. You want to be thinking, okay, well, that's my first option that my mind went to because that's what the most universal kind of thought is about that character. But let's dig deeper and really think about something interesting and new that we can add to the character. Okay. So I'm thinking I'm really liking the third design. So I think I'm going to move forward with that, but I'm going to copy the face over from the second one. Or maybe I will work with the face from the third one. So let me go ahead and let's work with the third one, because I feel like that's what I'm feeling right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that third one. And all I do to copy a layer is literally grab that layer and bring it down to the post-it note icon in the corner of Photoshop. I guess we can keep all the layers still there, but I'm going to put them on the side. Oops. If you ever get lost, just undo it. That's kind of my philosophy in Photoshop. So I'm going to put all the other designs on the side. So I really like the base of the character we have going on here. Let's go ahead, make it pretty big. I'll make sure you guys can see it on the live stream all right. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be kind of zooming in on the face area and working on that for a bit. Because like I said at the beginning of the stream, I still have to show you guys the winners of the Mother Earth contest and show you some of the books and prints that I bought from artists at the Spectrum convention I was at this past weekend. So I want to make sure we have enough time for everything here. So I'm going to go ahead and start on the face, but what I'm not going to do is zoom in extremely close and work on it, because I think that is very much a time waster, where if I'm laying out more of the finer details right from the start, I'm not utilizing my time effectively. Where if I'm kind of zooming out, looking at the picture as a whole, and being concerned that way, then you'll find out that you'll work faster for the most part. But my only concern is that you guys won't be able to see this really well, so maybe I'll zoom in just one more. But I still want to stay zoomed out enough that I'm not concentrating on over detailing an area. That's definitely one of my biggest habits that it's really hard for me to break, and I'm sure you guys come across that as well, is where you'll want to start detailing too soon in a picture. So do your best to be strong and hold the detailing and shading parts till the end. So for her, I want to be also working fast, because sometimes I get into the mode where I get stuck moving really slow, and then I find out like a ton of time has passed and I've barely made any progress. So I'm going to try to work a little faster, not worrying if it looks super perfect. Like I always try to reiterate, because I find that really important for artists, where they get stuck and kind of lost in their own work doing little detailing stuff that really isn't affecting the picture as a whole. Someone's asking, is there a good way to go about designing armors for female characters? I would definitely recommend not doing what most female characters are wearing in the market today. I actually sometimes get really frustrated when I see characters that are wearing next to little to nothing, and they're supposed to be like these heavy clad armor guard driven characters, and it's just so unrealistic to me that I can't even fathom how that got passed or greenlit on the project. So for designing armor, you definitely have to keep the body shape in mind. So you're definitely gonna have to give leeway to the breastplate area, and there will be some areas that kind of conform to the curves of the body, but there's ways of doing it without sexualizing it. So I think that should be the goal, if you're trying to design armor for a female character without it looking, I guess, skanky would be the best word to describe that. Now, as I'm doing the face here, I have to keep in mind that she's an older female character, so there's going to be a lot of lines and wrinkles on her face that will define her. So I don't want to underdo it, or else I might make her age look too young, and I definitely want to give her that sense of, you know, hey, I'm over 50, but the wrinkles is more of a pride thing for her. Like, she's proud to be older, and she's not afraid to show off her wrinkles. So this would be one character that's not going to be putting on any face cream at night. So I'm starting to take lighting into effect here. I'm not going to go overboard. I'm pretty much just going to give it a slight edging so that I can start to play with the different planes of the face and give kind of a 3D look to this character, because otherwise it would look really flat. And just to soothe my mind a little bit, I like to give it some dimension. And even though the face isn't perfect, like even the eyes really bother me at this point, I'm not gonna let that bother me to the point of fixing it, because I just have to keep in mind that, you know, this is still an early stage of the sketch, that I shouldn't be worried about how perfect it looks when we're still so like young in the whole process of creating this character. Oh, this is a good one. What's the difference between concept art and illustration? And are they interchangeable? So there is a huge difference. And even a lot of concept art could be considered marketing art. And there's a difference between that. So for me, there's three kinds of art. There's concept art, marketing art, and illustration. So concept art is kind of what we're doing here, or even what we were doing before this. Like laying out different stages of the character, giving different examples and feels to what the character may be wearing, different, sometimes different even poses, but for the most part, variations on what the character is wearing. And that would be considered the concept art. And concept art can be rendered to a point and it can look really pretty, but then you might get more into the promotional marketing art, where if you have a really nice rendered character piece, that's not really concept art so much as that is marketing art. Because concept art is usually really quick, and it's just supposed to give what it's called, the concept of the character. Now an illustration usually includes a background, has a nice dynamic pose and composition to it, and that's a whole nother category completely. So by that point, concept art's already been kind of thought up for the character, and when you're doing an illustration, you're taking the concept that is already kind of given and creating a really nice composition out of it. So I definitely think they are very much different. So I definitely want to get in here because right now the cheeks are looking a bit tight. You got to give it a softer look. And I want some of her curls sticking out from under this hat thing or whatever this is. And then maybe for like the next 10 minutes, I'll zoom in on the face and give you guys a quick look at how I would go about detailing this a bit more. Someone's asking, can you make a turnaround for her? Yeah, I definitely think I could make a turnaround for you guys if you want. I definitely would have to finish the character design first, but after that I could. So when I'm zoomed in this close, and I really do recommend not doing this if you're doing a full character piece, but if you're doing like a bust or a profile, then I find this to be more acceptable. But for the most part, I'm going to be treating this in between like a painting and a drawing, where I'm going to be using a smaller brush, and for the most part I'm just rendering different areas out. And when I say rendering, I mean like using the lighting that I'm adding to this piece in different areas to really give it a more realistic perspective look of the character. Oh yeah, someone's saying older females often have softer hanging cheeks. Fully agree. I think her cheekbones are a bit too intense right now. I need to get those a little less intense. So I think for her eye, and with elderly people, I find that their eyes either have like this really small opening to them and it almost looks like it's hard for them to open their eyes, or they're more open, circular, but you can barely see any of the what would be considered the white part of the eye or the cornea, and mostly what you see is just the iris. I think for her, she's going to have these really sharp, intense eyes. So when drawing like the irises, I like to work from a dark layer first and then kind of build up the lights from there. And I'm trying to avoid putting any highlights in this right now because I want to save all of that kind of stuff for near the end of the piece where I'm nowhere near that right now. And now here's a good time of where I don't normally draw wrinkles. I don't really find myself drawing this too often. So I'm going to just Google or Pinterest older, or like I could even do grandmother's face or something. So when I'm looking at reference, I'm really looking at the way that the wrinkles are forming on the eye. I'm looking at the different way the skin folds. And like I said earlier, I'm not just copying and stealing the images from Google and drawing over them. I'm looking at them and I'm using them exactly as I meant to use them, which is as reference. So definitely having deep pockets where the skin is almost heavier and I feel like it's folding down onto the character's face. But I definitely want to give her that heavy smear of makeup where it looks like she doesn't even care if it's completely on the right areas of her face where she's meaning to apply the makeup, just so long as it's kind of in the right spot. And I really want that attitude to kind of read when someone looks at this character. So having little details like that would be little good indications. And it's really good to have reference for someone that's older for wrinkles, just to make sure you're adding wrinkles in all the right areas. Because oftentimes we may have an idea in our head of what it would look like, because all of us have seen an older person, but to really have that visual reference right there, giving you exact placement of where lines would go, I think that's invaluable for doing a character like this. And the more comfortable you become with looking at reference and one, not feel like you're stealing, because I feel like a lot of artists have that weird association with using reference and stealing. I think it's good to get over that as soon as possible. So even with her face, like the nose wrinkle, I'm going to make a bit deeper. I'm going to carry that wrinkle around her mouth into the smile line here. I'm not exactly sure what the exact skin fold name would be there for that. And oftentimes I find myself making up names for different areas of the face, like the smile line. I'm not really sure if that's a real thing, but that's what I've always called it. And that's kind of just how I associate that. So with an older person, I also want to make the jawline not quite as defined. I'm going to flip this, see what it looks like from the other side. Yeah, I'm really liking how this is looking right now. So it's funny, like oftentimes when I'm doing characters that I'm not the most comfortable with, so like typically I would say my comfort zone is very effeminate looking females and male characters that are young, look like they belong in Final Fantasy, and for the most part that would probably be my go-to. But then I find myself when I do characters like this where it's not so much my comfort zone, I often find myself not having the stress of making it look perfect, which a lot of the times will help me work faster and work more complete. So it's weird. So maybe like try it yourself where work on a character type that you normally don't work on if you're a character artist or want to be a character artist. Like for me, having this older female character, it's definitely not my go-to, but I'm really enjoying this process and I really like where this character is going. And I would have never have done a character like this normally. And I think you'll surprise yourself at what you'll learn when doing a character that's not in your comfort zone or your go-to. Just going to add a little bit of lighter tones for her face. Oh, that's awesome. Someone's saying, wow, I'm amazed how much I like this. I like how this went. I did not think I was going to like this character. And I feel the same way when I draw some things where I'm not really feeling it at first or I'm not really taken by the concept. Or a lot of times it happens with like freelance work where if sometimes I'm given a character, I'm like, ugh, like that doesn't sound like fun. But then as I get into it and I start working, it's like, oh wow, this was actually awesome and I'm really enjoying this. Oh, and she would definitely have a bunch of jewelry and excessive nonsense. But I think she'd be a little bit more refined, so she's not gonna wear like hoop rings or anything flashy. Something smaller, maybe like emeralds. Maybe she has that thing that you sometimes see with people where they have some like grays, but just on the side. And when me and my friend were making up this character, the more that we talked about it, the more that we got excited because I could see the different aspects and interests that this character could bring to a story. Because someone that's older, they have so much more life experience and so many more stories that they can tell compared to a younger character. And I think a lot of times why the market is so lenient and more catered to the younger audience and why most of their characters are younger is because they're more relatable. Like most people that play video games are tend to be, I shouldn't say most, they tend to be younger. And even with like my generation, I find that we tend to relate with characters that are most similar to our age and life experiences, unless if it's like the ones they've gone to war or something where it's like not so much relatable, but we want to be that person. That then it becomes like a hero figure. So people like Grizzy usually aren't like at the forefront of gaming lead characters or movies or whatever she would be the star of. But she makes a great side character. That's why I think I love her so much. Oh, and her head looks way too small for that body. So before I go ahead and kind of cut this off and take you through the winners of the contest and show you what I bought at Spectrum, I'm going to make this head bigger to match the body. So all I did was I grabbed the selection tool and I grabbed it using there's a specific name for it. Let me see here. the lasso tool. There we go. And I just enlarged it, copied, or sorry, I selected it, copied, pasted it on a new layer, enlarged that layer, and literally posted it right on top, so you can see the difference before and after. Alright, so that's our start of Grizzy. I think I'm going to continue on her next week, but we are kind of running out of time, so I'm going to go ahead and save this. And let's go ahead and talk about, first I'm going to show you guys what I got at Spectrum, and then we will announce the contest winners of the spring contest. So let me go ahead and switch this to my screen. There we go. Okay. So I think I have most of it upstairs, up here in my office, but I may have to grab some books downstairs. But I'm going to show you guys what I bought first. So if you guys don't know what Spectrum is or what I'm even talking about right now, I went to a convention called Spectrum, and it's like Spectrum Live. And it's pretty much, they have a book that they sell every year, and it's a collection of really high fantasy artists, and it's like the best of the best. And they put them all together in a book. And then this is the 3rd year of the convention where they bring some of those people to a spot, and they kind of showcase their work in booths, and they give like portfolio reviews, and they do live sculpting and different demos and panels, so it's pretty cool. So I'm just going to take you through some of the things I found. Okay, there was one artist, she was a French artist, and probably one of my favorites. Her name is Virginie Roper. I hope I didn't mispronounce that. But she does all these like really gorgeous mannequin dolls that are very unique, very interesting. I could stare at them for hours. So I definitely bought one of her prints, and this is one of the ones that she had live there. Like you could see it. And this wasn't even the biggest one. But yeah, she signed it. She was really nice. So I definitely think you guys should check her out if you're interested in like very abstract character designs like this. And I'll put links. I'm going to do a whole convention post eventually. So I'll put links to all these artists that I saw. Wiley Beckert. She was another really great one. I don't know if you guys can see this with the window. Try to block out the light as best I can, but still showing the piece off. So that was really cool. And then one of the artists that I really like that Deandra showed me, her name is Camila de Erico. So she does these like really cool, crazy female rendered manga pieces that have crazy lines and colors, and it's really interesting to look at. And now there are a few others. I'm going to go ahead and grab. I have 3 books that I bought, so I'm going to grab those really quick before I show you guys the contest results. Be right back. Okay, so continue with Camila's stuff. She had a bunch of books out, and the one that I got was called Helmet Girls, and it's just a collection of like her digital and inked pieces. So I don't know if you guys can see this as well, but really cool work. Definitely an artist you should check out. And lastly, so these are 2 books called White Cloud Worlds. And pretty much it's a collection of artists that live in New Zealand. Ooh, can't believe I have to catch my breath just from running downstairs. So shows you how much I run nowadays. But it's a really great collection of New Zealand artists that their artwork is fantastic. And these are definitely interesting books that I didn't even know existed. So anyways, that was Spectrum in a nutshell. And like I said, I'll put more of the post and what I saw in the post, and look forward to that. So why don't we go forward and let me show you the contest results. So I'm going to switch back to my computer here. Okay. So this had the highest number of entries that we've ever had for a contest. You can see there were 10 pages that we all had to look through. And I was really impressed with the results and the creativity that you guys were showing. And definitely gave me inspiration, and I was inspired to see like some of the artists that entered were some of artists that I've looked up to for the past couple of years. I feel like I should just take a minute to catch my breath. But why don't I go ahead and show you guys the top 3. So in third place, we have this entry done by, and I'm not going to pronounce the name because I know I'm going to kind of skew it, but this is a really beautiful piece, and I think obviously the focus is on the hair and the way that the swirls bring your eye toward the center. So this is a really interesting concept, and I think one that a lot of us really enjoyed. In second place is one that was done by one of my good friends, Puiche, and he and I will be at ASEN together this weekend, so it was really fun to kind of see him entering one of these contests, and he just did an absolutely gorgeous, beautiful render, and I couldn't be more proud of it. I really think he understands color well, and I really see like the scene and the story that he's trying to tell. So this was a gorgeous entry, so I want to say congratulations to not only a fantastic digital artist, but one of my friends as well. And in first place is this entry. So congratulations to Feverworm. And this is an artist that I've been following for years. So to see her or him, I don't know if it's a boy or a girl, but to see them enter, it was just kind of outstanding. And we all felt like this really captured an interesting take on Mother Earth. And this also won the community vote with 26 hearts. So I want to say congratulations, and what a beautiful contest this was in general. I was really proud of all the results. And I will post a full contest results post later today, so you can look forward to that as well as seeing the entries again. So as always, I don't know why I'm so out of breath right now, but I want to thank you guys. It's because I've been talking on blast for like the past hour, but I want to thank you guys to coming to this live stream. We do these every Wednesday at 2 p.m. and that's Central Time in the States, and that's -5 GMT outside of it. And next week I will be continuing on part 3 of this character of Grizzy, and I think what I'm going to be doing is adding some colors. Oops. We're going to be adding some colors to her as well as defining more areas besides the face. I may work a little more on it just to get us a little better prepared for next week. But for the most part, this was the part 2 results. And then next week we're going to continue and further it. And this weekend, if you are in the Chicagoland area, Concept Cookie will have its own booth at the Anime Central Convention in Rosemont, Illinois. So if you're in the area, you should stop by. And besides that, look forward to the summer, which we have a new artist every week doing a tutorial. And there are some really great ones. I'm really excited to show you guys what we have in store for you. So look forward to some of the promotion stuff coming out so you can kind of start getting glimpses of what's going to be coming your way. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and maybe grab some water and just rest for a little bit, at least rest my voice, because I am out of breath and I need to catch it. So I want to thank you guys for coming to this live stream, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Bye, guys.